I've gone over almost every single scenario imaginable on this channel of when it makes sense to be a homeowner and when it doesn't. But now a lot of the older generations are moving away from owning a home and into renting. And actually, not all the people who are doing this are deciding to do this for financial reasons. There's some other things that we'll take a look at as well. And by the way, today I am in Belle Marin Keys and I'm walking down Del Oro Lagoon Drive. So here's an example of a woman, 64 years old, who has a big 5-bedroom house, but now that her kids are all grown up, she didn't want to deal with the constant maintenance because obviously maintaining a big 5-bedroom house is very difficult. So she sold her home and moved into a 2-bedroom rental in an age-restricted community near Dayton, Ohio. The reason was mostly freedom, actually. No more yard work, no more fixing water heaters, no more home improvement projects. And that can be said for anybody who wants to make the transition from being a renter to an owner or vice versa, because when you own a property, you have lots of things that you have to deal with when it comes to maintenance. But as a renter, all you got to do is call the maintenance crew or call the landlord, and it's their problem. Whether or not they're timely in fixing the matter is a whole nother issue, and a lot of people do have problems with that when renting. But that's why it's very important before you move into a rental to try to sniff that stuff out ahead of time. It's not always going to be possible, but if it's like a rental community in an apartment complex, you can ask the neighbors how well management does with keeping up with maintenance requests. And if it's an individual landlord, just by looking at the property and how well it's maintained should give you a pretty good idea of if you're going to have issues with them or not. But here's the thing, this story that I just told you is not unique at all, because according to the US Census Bureau and Point2 Homes, renters who are 65 years and older have grown by 30% in just the past decade. In fact, the fastest growing group of renters is not young people, it's actually senior citizens. And it's because these guys are asking themselves, do I really need to own a home now in my 60s and beyond? And in some cases, it really is a matter of affordability, because you have property taxes that are continuing to go up every single year. Even if you're homesteaded, you're still getting an increase if values are increasing in your area. Some people even get hit with double-digit increases overnight. If you haven't seen a reassessment in a while, you can easily see a big one seemingly out of nowhere. And of course, you have the insurance premiums that continue to rise no matter what. You always have the constant cost of repairs around your home. And so it's like once you get into your older years, sometimes it's like it's not even the smarter financial decision, even though renting a lot of times is, but it's actually the smarter decision when it comes to lifestyle as well. And for many of these people, it's not just about downsizing their home or their financial responsibilities. It's also about downsizing their chores and their maintenance activity that they're required to do on their home. Here's an example of another couple that sold their home in Tennessee and then they rented in Santa Fe to be near their son. Renting not only gave them flexibility, but also time to travel and no repair bills. Later on, they bought again when prices started climbing, but only after years of enjoying the renter lifestyle. And sometimes it makes sense to kind of bounce back and forth, like depending on whether or not the area you're living in is significantly cheaper to buy or rent. That should be one of the largest deciding factors of whether or not you decide to buy or rent, is how much money are you saving per month by doing one or the other. And of course, leaving behind a home that you've owned for decades is never easy. You know, maybe you raised your children there, you have lots of wonderful memories in the house. Sometimes even your identity is tied to a home and to a neighborhood. But more people are realizing that they don't need a mortgage or they don't need that property to feel secure. They'd rather have the flexibility to move closer to their adult children, wherever they're at, travel as they please, or just skipping the hassle of having to fix the broken roof or the broken air conditioning unit or the garage door that needs to be replaced, whatever. And a lot of developers are noticing this trend, as there's been a lot of brand new 55 and older rental communities popping up across the country. in the form of townhomes and apartments with walking trails and dog parks and things like that. And these places are specifically being built to appeal to those who want to live in a community without the burdens of homeownership. And of course, there is the financial aspect, guys. Like, for a very long time before 2020, in many places across the country, it really was cheaper to become a homeowner, especially over the long run, than to be a renter. And that's why people in this age group always had this advice for young people that, hey, you shouldn't be wasting your money paying for somebody else's mortgage. You want to become an owner yourself. But over the past 5 years, that dynamic has gotten completely flipped on its head. And in most areas now across the country, it is actually cheaper to be a renter, sometimes significantly cheaper, sometimes 50 to 100% cheaper to be a renter. And one thing I want everybody to pay attention to here is this is right on track with the prediction that we've been talking about on this channel about the silver tsunami, which is a lot of retired people selling their homes before they even pass away, before they even pass it down to their children. They're getting rid of these houses now while they're still alive and well and can enjoy having a different life. And so if this is already starting to become a trend now, and inventory on the housing market has already reached pre-pandemic levels, well, this is yet another piece of good news for anybody who's been patient and been waiting to buy a home. Because the more of these homes that hit the market, the more choices you're going to have, and the more prices are going to have to fall because of all the extra inventory. And the data backs this up, because take a look at this chart right here. This is actually a story out of the Bay Area, but it applies across the whole country, because you can see that the change in the share of renters who are 65 and older has been going up quite a bit. In San Francisco, it's up 13.4% between 2013 and 2023, which is the same as the national average. But the largest changes are in places like New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Cape Coral, Florida, St. Louis, Albany, New York, Northport, Florida, where upwards of 20% of adults 65 and older are now renters rather than owners. So on a national basis, that's an additional 2.4 million renters now than we had before in this age group. In fact, according to Point Two Homes, only 2 out of the 75 major U.S. metro areas that they track posted a decline in the share of renters between 65 and older. Those are McAllen, Texas, and Allentown, Pennsylvania. That's it. So pretty much everywhere across the country, senior citizen renters are becoming more and more the norm.